And look at this. He is the real deal. Another twist of fate. Another twist of fate in a romp here in the El Camino Real Derby.
Mucho gusto. Impressive in victory. Cruises home by 5 easy lengths.
It's War of Will from Country House and Boyland. War of Will, Wells Phillip again, won the Risen Star from Country House.
Super Steed is the one that emerges. Super Steed at the quarter pole has made a very big move, and it lands him 3.5 lengths in front.
Now, in looking at the President's Day feature at Oaklawn Park in Hot Springs, Arkansas, was the Southwest Stakes Grade 3, and it's amazing that it is a Grade 3 for $500,000, $500,000. Back in the good old days, you know, $500,000 was an automatic Grade 1 level race, but it's interesting in this day and age that a $500,000 race is a G3. But anyway, these horses were going a mile and a 16th, 8.5 furlongs. 5 horses out of the Steve Asmussen barn were entered in this race. Todd Pletcher had a horse in here by the name of Cutting Humor that was getting a lot of play in here, as well as Asmussen's Long Range Toddy, a horse who had run pretty well in closing in the Smarty Jones Stakes, won by Gray Attempt, who was going in as sort of a lukewarm top favorite in this race. A son of Graydar. A lot of people don't think he really can go that far, but he was coming in with the Smarty Jones in his pocket as a stakes victory. And then, of course, Keith DeSormo, brother of Hall of Fame jockey Kent, had SUENO, who was second in the Sham Stakes, shipping in. He liked the timing of this race and how this horse was doing, and let's face it, $500,000, you know, the timing is always going to be somewhat good if your horse is doing reasonably well. He had run a good race there, and I think Keith, as he had said in the pre-race interview, he wanted to see if the horse could ship a little bit. Hopefully that's not going to be a detriment to him on this Derby trail. It certainly wasn't in the way that he ran. He closed very, very well in this race, in a race in which he saved ground. Kind of got outrun on the turn, but that's not really a detriment in a full pack field where everyone's jockeying for position and hoping they have some horse left for the drive in the stretch. And then he angled in a little bit. He was able to kind of, you know, go 3 wide and finished strongly, bounced to the outside of the winner, who was Super Steed, a son of 2010 Kentucky Derby winner Super Saver, trained by the cowboy hat-wearing Larry Jones of 8 Bells and Derby runner-up of 2007 Hard Spun fame. This horse, son of Super Saver, made a 5-wide move in the center of the racetrack on the turn, about 3/4 in, after fractions of 23.43 for the first half mile, a nice 47.63 clip for the half, 112.73, slowed down a little bit in the 3/4, much in the way that it did in the Risen Star. Very interesting. And then the final time was 144.05. But before that final time was registered, Super Steed made a 5-wide move and completely swept by the field in this race. Just an enthralling, what we call breathtaking move. One of those sort of, wouldn't call it a Secretariat move, but it was sort of what you saw with Vindication, the son of Seattle Slew, in the Kentucky Cup Juvenile a few years back in 2002, way back then. Point Given did the same thing as a 2-year-old, or something like you saw with a Rozzy. It was one of those kind of moves, or Street Sense in the 27 or the 26 2006 Breeders' Cup Juvenile. One of those really electrifying type of moves, a Victory Gallop sort of move with Terry Thompson aboard. He was able to hold off SUENO in the stretch. He certainly didn't buckle in the deep stages, but SUENO made a very, very strong move. But for a horse to do what Super Steed did from about 3.5, 4 furlongs out is impressive, but the question is going to be, in his next prep, especially if he gets a better trip, can he sit back and even have more in reserve and be as or more effective going a distance of ground? Because ideally, you might not be able to get away with that against theoretically better horses at a mile and an eighth, and not only so much better horses, but the added distance. So that's going to be the very, very sort of dynamic, point of interest with Super Steed. Can he go 5 wide again and do something like that if he has to? It certainly is encouraging, but you don't always know how these horses are coming out of races tantamount to whether they can do it, can duplicate something like that. But it's one of those performances where you were hoping that you can get a better trip to not have to do that. But the fact that he was able to show that he could do that certainly shows that he is a promising colt. Some people, the hardened handicappers, don't believe he's probably going to be a top contender. There are going to be a lot of handicappers believing one way or the other that one horse is a toss versus another being legitimate. I think for right now that you have to at least give him a little respect based on this performance. Again, the time was pretty nice, 144.05. Again, all these times, these final clockings pale in comparison to Mucho Gusto. But again, we don't know if Mucho Gusto is going to regress, whether he's going the 8.5 furlongs again, or whether he from that point into the 1.125. We don't know from the next 1.16 to 1.125 race, whatever Bob Baffert schedules for him, if he's going to significantly be faster, or if that's fast enough to compete with possibly the improving Game Winner and Improbable. We don't know. And then, of course, Signal Man, who was third in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile behind Game Winner Nick's Go. He is going to debut in the Fountain of Youth. We don't know, after winning the Kentucky Jockey Club, how good he is. So we're going to find out, as Bob Baffert would say, the cream rises to the crop. We're going to find out the level of how good the highest level of performance is amongst these 3-year-olds. But Super Steed was very impressive. Went 5 wide, immediately opened up a 3-length lead to win this race and hold off a very, very nice closing SUENO, who you have to believe would like the added distance. But once again, just like with Country House, that added distance doesn't always mean, added, benefit and a better performance. Again, you're going a further distance of ground. That rhythm has to be established and maintained for a longer distance before you have to show a little more acceleration and show a multiple gear. And some horses are one-run horses, and that's sometimes good enough if the front runners aren't, pulling away to hit the board, but maybe not win a race like this. The ones that have a couple extra gears are the ones that can not only make inches but yards and close on front runners and stalk and pouncers to win big races like that. As Jerry Bailey said, closers, it's very difficult for closers to win often because they have to overcome traffic and pace. And again, you've got to overcome, last but not least, those front runners that can hold up on the front end and the stalk and pounce horse that have the tactical ability to do just that, stalk, pounce, and finish strongly. So that's going to be the question mark as we increase in trip in this February to March to April madness leading up to the Kentucky Derby, how these closing horses will do. But SUENO, very, very good in second place to Super Steed. And looking at the order of finish, it was Super Steed winning it again by 3/4 after making that 5 wide move to just sweep by the field. SUENO in second. He was 1 1/4 lengths in front of Long Range Toddy, one of the 5 out of the Asmussen barn. He was up close early. Again, like SUENO, kind of got boxed in, an outrun there in the backside. And then he re-rallied it on the inside, found a little bit of a lane there to run in, a little daylight, ran very, very well. So he might be a horse to take a look at. He finished third behind Super Steed and SUENO. And then you have Six Shooter, who was overtaken in the final stages by Long Range Toddy. He ran a good race, and I think that was a good performance from him. Bank It, another one out of the Asmussen barn, was 5th. Another Asmussen trainee right beside him was Boldor. And then Todd Pletcher's Cutting Humor, finished 7th. Another Asmussen trainee, Jersey Agenda, was 8th. And then, of course, 9th Street, living up to his name, finished 9th. And he, too, also from the Asmussen barn. And then 10th was Olympic Runner. And then Gray Attempt, the winner of the Smarty Jones, picking up the rear in 11th. What does this say about the Asmussen quintet? And again, with the exception of Long Range Toddy, there have to be concerns about whether these horses are legitimate. My guess is going to be, as I've said before, horsemen are notoriously skeptical. I think Asmussen is going to sit and say, a couple of these horses go to the Louisiana Derby. Again, the Rebel is, of course, in between. So I think a couple of them will come back for the Rebel to see if they can get in a position for him to make a more informed decision on whether to run in the Arkansas Derby and then choose between that and the Bluegrass, maybe the new, the Wood Memorial. I don't think that, we're going to likely see any of those horses ship out to California for the Santa Anita Derby or anything like that. So I think between that and then also the Florida Derby, Asmussen might be contemplating that. But right now, based on the way these horses underperformed, I would say right now that the Florida Derby and even some of these other races are somewhat of a long shot right now until we find out if some of them will run in the Rebel and so forth. I think that they're going to have to, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and see if they can even, run in another prep. Maybe the Gotham might even fit in as well to even be in the hunt for this, because they're the also rans, they're the tosses, along with the also rans and the Risen Star. Plus Q Parfait is going to have to, basically completely reestablish himself, much in the same way when we go to the Kentucky Oaks Trail. Positive Spirit, the winner of the Demoiselle at a mile and 8, the Aqueduct bombed in the Rachel Alexandra, won by Serengeti Empress. We'll talk more about that on the CS Racing Report. And horses like that, and Coliseum for Bob Baffert, who bombed in both the Sham Stakes and the San Vicente, those are horses you have to toss out until these upcoming preps, are, contested, that they're going to, prove themselves that this race was an aberration. And that's what you're going to have to see here. But meantime, Super Steed, the son of Super Saver, the 2010 Kentucky Derby winner for Larry Jones, wins the Southwest Stakes over Keith the Sormo-trained Sueno, with Long Range Toddy out of the Asmussen barn finishing third in 144.05 to punch a ticket to the upcoming preps on the road to the 2019 Kentucky Derby.
In the center of the racetrack goes Super Steed, and he is now moving up 5 wide, 5 across the track, and Super Steed is the one that emerges. Super Steed at the quarter pole has made a very big move, and it lands him 3.5 lengths in front. 6 Shooter has run up outside of Cutting Humor, then comes Bankin' and Long Range Toddy, but Super Steed comes to the final furlong, and he is 3 in front. SUENO, and to the outside 6 Shooter. Super Steed to the 16th pole, 2.5 in front. SUENO trying to gun him down on the money. Super Steed, SUENO, Super Steed. The 50 for the Southwest goes to Super Steed over SUENO. Long Range Toddy finished third, 6 Shooter fourth.